So I talked in the first playlist about changes to family structure and how this momentous, powerful change, which is tied to the changing roles of women and the end of women being owned, and is tied to women emancipating themselves from violence, this is like a major, major, major change to society. Now the family is our primary institution and will always be our primary institution. It's always been our primary institution. It is the institution that shapes the rest of society and the economy, and it reproduces itself over and over and again, over and over and over again, because it's tied to identity. And this is the stuff that we reproduce effortlessly. Now, the family was historically at the core of the power structures that emerged organically, that are actually still at the centre of all our other institutions. And there is, like, basically, the institution at the centre of our political economy is the best institution to look at to see that the way that we have kind of had power structures that have emerged from a family, and that's the monarchy. Now, the UK monarchy is quite interesting. It's very interesting, actually, and it's not. The one thing that the UK monarchy is not is a symptom of class dominance at all. It looks like it is. We're always a bit like that in England. We kind of like things to look a bit like that, but they never really are. Now, I can pretty much trace our monarchy back to Boudica. Do you know what I mean? Like, really? I'm interested in a minute, and, you know, the period kind of actually after the Roman invasion and where our national identity is formed. And actually, our monarchy is a very, very old institution. And even if you're just starting at Edward the Confessor, which is really quite late on, because by this point this system had been evolving for, you know, more than 1,000 years. Even if you just go to Edward the Confessor to now, this is a very old institution. And through this institution, you can see the evolution of England, the UK, whatever, from an Iron Age society through, you know, tribal and tribes and invasions and assimilations. And then you see, as kind of start to emerge, you know, this system is at the core of, like, our actual class system. You know, you see how this emerges into kind of regional kingdoms, and then it solidifies into a national identity, and then, you know, you see through this system, probably you see through this system, through a country having to learn to offset the batshittery of some of the most psychopathic families that you could imagine. Like the Plantagenets and the Tudors were fucking batshit. Like they were, like, really a psychologist dream batshit. And so what you actually see through this, like, guide road that goes back 1,500 years, that's quite accessible because it's a story about people, is the evolution of a British state and of other institutions to keep this institution in check. And throughout our history you see us doing this. And actually the story of the English monarchy wrote, the Scottish monarchy is different, because the Scottish monarchy and the English monarchy were very, very different before they came together. But through the English monarchy, you see a story, actually, of a country where we've never coped well. We've never really liked monarchs who, you know, all monarchs have had to realise at some point that they are beholden to people in this country. And our monarchy is actually a story of how we have pulled this system into check as people. Now, there's a guy that I really don't like. I think he's an obsequious, two-faced, nasty little toad. And he's called Dave Allen Green. But he said something on Twitter that just bled into my timeline, because I never actually followed him at all. But he actually said something that's very, very true, and that's very, very interesting. And for quite a significant period of time, our monarchy has been, it evolved into a system that allows us to function as a republic while giving us the identity of a monarchy. So we kind of retained the traps and, you know, the decoration of monarchy. But we've actually kind of gently, well, if you don't discount, you know, the people whose head will be chopped off and other stuff, we largely have fashioned our monarchy organically, like many hundreds of years ago, into an institution which provides stability because it's based around a family structure and the family we thought would continue to reproduce effortlessly, but which actually sits above institutions to keep them separate. It keeps institutions working for the crown, but the crown in this case is not the monarch. The crown is citizenship, is equality. The crown is the guarantee that everybody in this country is equal at present under the crown, and the crown oversees our civil service institutions and our justice system, and it actually keeps all these things in, keeps this balance. And because our monarchy have for several hundreds of years, we've kind of agreed that what they will do is that is their function. We are a constitutional monarchy. And I couldn't be the queen because I'd want to be fucking raising armies and going fucking having regional wars. Our queen has to agree to basically keep her gob shut for her entire life, which she does, to the point where wearing a fucking hat with yellow flowers on it as a symbol of European loyalty is a major political statement. Our monarchy has evolved to do this. And one of the reasons that the change in family structures, which we talked about with other institutions, was so worrying for the monarchy, was that this was all dependent on this family structure that had never changed. The same family structure that altered and produced the political shock of my mother's generation of single parents is the same change to family structure that led to the Annus Horribilis, where the Queen was going, what the fuck do we do if people start divorcing? This was major. But they've kind of adapted. Now all the Jews, there are a lot of very valid things to say about the monarchy as a symptom of class reproduction, but from my perspective, the duties to look after children are held under the crown and are secure under the crown. And in the last 8 years, when Westminster and policy making was willing to bin those duties, it's the fact that they were secured under the crown that kept them safe and means that they are absolutely safe. And our monarchy is reproducing, and it is stable, and it still does guarantee that we operate as a republic, and it still does provide an image of our traditions and our national identity, which is actually very important, and a lot of people really value it. My mother-in-law had a picture of her 3 people away from the Queen, not even speaking to the Queen, because it was a picture of her and the Queen, and she had it in pride of place in her living room. This is important shit to her. I don't feel any deference to the monarch, any particular monarch, but this is a fact. This is an institution that is 1,500 years old with another 1,000 years of history before it. It's the institution at the centre of the rest of our institutional structure, because actually the rest of our institutional structure has been about emerging from structures where this family had power to us ruling ourselves. And for several hundred years, this is the institution that's actually guaranteed that we can run as a republic. And this has performed this function of keeping our other institutions separate and have a check and a balance, a very important one. And for my purposes, this is where the duties to look after children are secured, and this is certainty. Our policymakers do not learn about the function of the crown, and they don't know that this is the case. They don't think about this routinely. They certainly don't at the LSE. And what's going to happen post-Brexit is we are going to have to actually think about our institutional structure, because this is a major stabilising institution, and this is a stabilising institution which keeps other checks and balances in check. It keeps our civil service neutral, it keeps our justice system separate from it, keeps our part, and this is a really important function. And it's also the function that allows us to see how family dynamics reproduce themselves. And what you can see is, that in other institutions you can tell there's a problem of elite social closure when family structures start to shape those institutions. Family structures will always do that. Family is the absolute core of our identity. We will reproduce that identity where we can. And so the Crown is a very good institution to also look at, to learn about how family structures and power have interacted. Now we pretend that we've had democracy forever. Have we? Fuck. The turn of last century, people couldn't even vote in this country, and in most of World War I was about, the whole of Europe trying to figure out new ways to move beyond what monarchy was. Now the English monarchy and the UK monarchy has always been very different from other monarchies in Europe, because other monarchies in Europe were about absolute power. And the ones that fell hardest, you know, the Russian Tsars were a highly centralized, highly supreme power, and this was not sustainable. And then because that was the structure when the Russian Revolution happened, what was available to take over was a highly centralized structure with a huge amount of absolute power. We have never had that in England. We have always been, no monarch in this country has really done that well if they tried to chuck their weight around. But we've never really stated it. We like the appearance of a monarchy, but we've never really done that. So it's really important to understand that the Crown is a major stabilising institution. And as Brexit happens, we are going to find that we not only have to consider the actual functions of the Crown because we have to maintain them, but we're actually going to find that the public relations offered by the monarchy, the actual family themselves, it's very, very important. This is part of our very much our national image that we sell to the world. And in fact, with, you know, the new lot breeding and providing children and marrying good-looking people, they are also now our symbol of modernity, which is fucking bizarre. So that is our central institution, and we are very fortunate right now that it's functioning. It's not dysfunctional. It's a site of very serious institutional resilience, and it's got enough reproduction has happened that will continue for another couple of generations, I hope. Which, given the way that we consumed the childhoods of, you know, what was he called? Harry and William, considering, I really am shocked that they even want to do it at all. But that is functioning. The monarchy is functioning. It's sat above all other institutions, and when we're thinking about stability, that's a very important source of stability, and it's going to become more important. This is going to piss a lot of people off who are all like, oh my god, I know it's a class structure, but for my purpose, the monarchy in the UK is actually holding up a bunch of duties that Westminster would really rather